Okay, so I did a few battles in Medieval 1212, and I thought a couple of them were worth showing. And we'll start off with this battle, in which I was playing as the Empire of Nicaea, and I was up against the Venetians. Interesting army compositions here. We'll go through them when the battle actually starts. Pretty basic map as well. There's a few trees for cover, but there isn't any significant kill advantage for one side or the other. Both of us could get up onto this ridge if we wanted to. But there is quite a lot of cavalry on the field, so the likelihood of that happening is actually rather low. Looks like the enemy has got a rather strange army composition. Obviously I wasn't paying much attention to that during the battle, at least in terms of actual units. Looks like he's got a rather mismatched force, but we'll go through that when it actually starts. Battle of Samandar. Okay, so let's go through the army composition. We'll go through mine first of all, because it's nice and easy for me to talk through that. I have 4 units of archers. I have the Mortatoi. Now that's the thing, when I speak with this mod, I'm going to be butchering the pronunciation of several of the factions' units, because they're very difficult to pronounce naturally, and the Byzantines are no different. But yeah, these guys are pretty basic archers. It says they're tier 1, they're actually not too bad. They do the same amount of missile damage anyway as the higher tier archers that the Byzantines get, which is why I brought them along. It was an area where I could save a little bit of money. For my main infantry corps, I have 3 units of the Anglo-Barangoi. Now these guys are very, very nice indeed. They do a lot of damage. And backing them up, I have the only unit that I'm allowed of the Varangian Guard. You're only allowed 1 unit of these guys, and they are essentially just better versions of the Anglo variant over here. And they have more men in the unit as well. It says they're tier 1, but they are anything but tier 1. Now, in terms of my cav, I have 3 units of the Cataphracts here. And I also have my general, the heir's bodyguard, no, the emperor's bodyguard, sorry, late period, and I believe this here is the emperor. He has a unique model. That's a cool looking set of armor, nice helm as well. And then of course we have the Byzantine banner. And then I have 5 units of these pikemen, the Contratoi. These guys again are pretty basic. There is a better pike unit, but I decided to get these because they were slightly cheaper and I wanted to have a more comprehensive line. And if we look at the balance of power, I have slightly less men, which means I have gone for a bit more quality. I also have brought a mortar, which is firing already. One thing to note, you actually cannot deploy in the deployment phase. You need to deploy immediately in this mod, otherwise the replay won't work, so that's a nice thing. So it's common courtesy to deploy immediately and then to allow your opponent to deploy. Unfortunately, I was unable to get my mortar to stop firing. So it did get a volley off. I don't actually think it hit anything though, so it doesn't really matter. So let's go through the Venetian army composition. Now he has 1 unit of the mercenary Genoese crossbowmen. This is the best skirmisher that Venice have, and it brings back all the worst kinds of memories from the Pavis crossbowmen of Medieval 2 and how effective they are. Very, very good in the skirmish fight. Not very good range, but the power they deliver is very, very good indeed. I'm honestly surprised he didn't bring more of these, because the mercenary Genoese would have allowed him to easily beat my skirmish force pretty comprehensively. He also has a unit of Ballistariae, which these guys are slightly lower tier crossbows. Still very good, but not quite as good as the mercenary Genoese. And then he has 2 units of the Arcieri. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these correctly, but these guys are, I would say they're probably around the same sort of quality as my archers. So he does have a slightly better skirmish force if you think of it, all things considered, but ultimately it's not as good as it could be. Moving on to his main line, he has 1 unit of the Militia Lanciare. So this is a militia unit, I believe, so that's a spear militia. Not particularly good if that's the case. Spear militia are not very high tier at all. He has the Targonieri as well, and these guys are tier 3, so these guys are significantly better in terms of spears. Good armor, so these guys will be harder to break, significantly harder to break than anything else he's got in his line. Spear's very, very survivable in this mod. He has the Piccieri. I really don't, I'm sure I'm butchering this pronunciation, but never mind. And these guys look slightly better than my pikes, but I have got far more number of pikes than he has. He's only got 2 units. If you're only going to bring 2 units of pikes, I would suggest it's not really worth it and you should only bring spears. if you're going to bring pikes, you should bring enough to make a decent line, and you should prepare to be a bit more defensive in your playstyle. He has one unit of the foot condottieri, and this is his best, at least most damaging infantry. They're basically the same as man-at-arms. They look fantastic, by the way. The unit models in this game are just superb. He also has some spadaccini, and these are his mainline swords. He has quite a few of them, actually. He has 4 units of them. And he has another unit of spears back here, the Lancer Sargente. So that's spear sergeants, basically. They're okay. They're not brilliant. Again, these guys like basic sergeants as well. And then he has a catapult, and now moving on to his cav. He has the early Doge of Venice, which he's not his general, so we'll just assume that this is the Doge's son, who's come to fight. He has some mounted condottieri. Now this is a very elite unit, of course. Late period, very heavy armor. Late period units are extremely powerful in this mod. His general's over here as well. He has one unit of the Cavalier. That's not right, surely not. Anyway, this is a high period unit, so they're slightly better than the early period units, but not quite as good as his condottieri. And then he has his high period Doge of Venice, so this is the real Doge here. Nice unit model there. So, starting off, and we will cut to the battle, I think, because this is just the skirmish phase, and of course the moving our armies into position. And oh, I did actually get a hit, but it didn't actually kill anything. So there you go. Anyway, I'll cut here while the armies are deploying. Okay, so starting back up, we have the skirmish phase that is underway. More specifically, it's really just the artillery that's firing at the moment. My mortar has begun opening up on his ranks, and he's also pushing up his catapult. Now, this brings me on to a rather interesting point. The catapult is very good at destroying other artillery, at least other catapults. The mortar is out of range, so I was lucky in that respect, but it seems like artillery gains a significant accuracy buff whenever it's targeting other artillery, which is rather strange. He's moving his cav down to the bottom of this hill here, so he's keeping his cav bunched together. My cav is here at the top, but I can't charge across here because of course he's moved his pikes out wide. He also has a good contingent of spears. If I wanted to, I probably could have moved my cav in to charge his archers just there, but he is also moving up his main line, so it would have been risky, and it probably wouldn't have been worth it. Not for his archers anyway. The only unit of archers he's got which is really worth going after is the Genoese crossbowmen, because of how effective they are both at range and in melee. Surprisingly good in melee they are, as with most tier 3 units. But I think I will make another small cut here while the artillery phase is underway. I just wanted to sort of explain the positioning of both armies. Of course, I'm very defensive with my pikes, as I would be with this amount. So, restarting then, I've moved my troops up a little bit further, and I'm also moving my cav down to this flank because he is trying to sort of wrap around. And I actually think I do have a very slight advantage in terms of the cav, because he only has one late period unit, which is probably the best unit on the field aside from my general. And I was thinking of just charging in, but I did notice he was bringing some spears out wide, so I decided against it. It's always good to back up your cav with spears. The skirmish is going in his favour, as I thought it would, but not for the reasons I thought it would. It's actually his catapult which is doing most of the damage, whereas my mortar is not doing as much damage as I thought. The mortar, it must be said, is very good at rattling the morale of the enemy, but their morale is not really under threat as it stands because they're not in battle. You know, their morale is not going to break just because they're under mortar fire, unfortunately. He's also bringing some troops out here, putting them into the trees. This is not a bad idea. It means I won't really be able to target them with my archers and get many kills. But it's also not really too concerning because I have my Anglo-Varangioi, or Varangioi, Anglo-Varangioi in reserve here, so if need be I can push them up. It is pikes, so I do need to be quite careful about how I take the engagement. He spread his spears out very wide over here. What sort of unit of spears did he send out wide? He sent one of his good spears out wide, so that is quite wise of him. That would really swing the cav battle in his favour, despite the fact overall my cav is probably a little bit better. I'm pulling my archers back, mainly because I knew that I was taking significant losses from the catapult, and he was also pushing his troops up. And my archers have more range, so I can safely have them behind my pike wall as his troops approach. The only problem is this does open up my pikes to the catapult fire, and they are bunched together, so they've already taken some pretty significant damage from the catapult, which is a bit of a shame, but they were not really the focal point of my army anyway. I'm also moving out my Anglo-Varangian over to this flank because he is moving through the trees, and I'm moving my Varangian Guard to back up my cavalry. Having one Anglo-Varangian back here to sort of support this main line, that does leave me a little thin in the centre, and I have to hope that my pikes will hold. The catapult is still firing, getting some decent hits on my archers. It's not getting a ton of kills though. He would be better off going for my pikes in this situation. But now his troops are in range, so we're going to start seeing the archers do their work. I believe I have them all on heavy shot as well, because some of his units are heavily armoured. That was a good hit on my pikes. And, okay, his cab isn't moving, but yeah, I have them all on heavy shot because some of his units are heavily armoured. In particular, I'm looking at stuff like this foot condottieri, and the heavy shot is going to be necessary to whittle them down. He has more infantry than I have, at least more melee infantry than I have. As they get closer, the mortar will actually start to do a lot more morale damage. So while it's very good, well, while it has very high range, it's actually probably more useful to me at this stage, closer up. I'm charging in a unit of cataphracts because I see one of his archers is slightly exposed. He's bringing up some spears to try and stop the charge, but it is too late. This is only a unit of his archers, but if I can do enough heavy damage to them, it will make it so that in the foot skirmish I will suddenly have the advantage in terms of numbers, and they break. They will come back because they're not shattered, but they have taken a significant amount of damage there, and now I will move my cavalry back into formation. He's moving his cav out over this way, so he's going to try and get around into my back ranks here. My mortar's still firing. He's just skirmishing me down. I see he's doing this, and he hasn't moved his spears over there with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to charge my Varangian Guard downhill into his spears, and then I'm going to peel off my cav and take a straight cav versus cav engagement. And I think he had them auto-targeted. They're spread out very thin as well. Varangian Guard, this is not a... And now they're not even facing the Varangian Guard, so this is not an engagement the spears won at all. So they are now going to be caught. The general is under attack. The cav fight has begun. I sent 2 units of cav to engage the front. So my general and the unit of cataphracts engaged from the front, and I'm wrapping out 2 of these cataphracts around from the side so that I can get the surround on his cav, and this will turn the cav battle fully in my favour. Well, at least I got the partial surround. I didn't really have the numbers to do the full surround, so I couldn't really... And I wanted to make sure my general survived. He has got his spears into melee, but I am surrounding with the Varangian Guard. He did try and send all of this infantry down to support, so I had to send a unit of Anglo-Varangian down here to just sort of stop them in their tracks. They are surrounded though. They will lose this fight because the foot condottieri are there, and they're surrounded, so it's not really an engagement, but I wanted to stop them influencing the cav fight. If I can win the cav fight, I'm looking good in this fight. Also, this gives me a good angle with which to use my archers on his foot condottieri. This is a waste of his best unit, to be honest with you. He should have used these guys from this side so that I couldn't hit them as easily. My pikes did manage to repel the first wave, but they are looking a little bit worse for wear on the centre. He has engaged over here. Now this is a unit of Spadaccini. My Anglo-Varangian will win that fight. Unfortunately, however, I couldn't get around this unit of pikes, so this is a fight that they will actually lose. And here we can see my pikes are starting to break. They're pretty low tier. Also, this unit of Anglo-Varangian is starting to break, and his swords are getting over there. He's really sending a lot of troops down to this cav fight, and that's good for him because he really needs to win that cav fight. Unfortunately, his best infantry unit has just broken and has taken pretty irreparable damage, to be honest with you. At this stage, he would honestly be better off trying to go for my archers instead of trying to influence the cav fight further. If he can get my archers off the field, because now I have the skirmish advantage, if he can gain the skirmish advantage back, my pikes will become pretty much useless, and he will be able to gain the advantage in this fight. Unfortunately, however, he has taken too long about trying to engage my archers, and they've taken a lot of casualties. They will almost certainly break before they manage to get into melee. The cav fight over here is still going in my favour for the moment, and that's mainly due to the expertise of the Varangian Guard. Excellent unit, the Varangian Guard. I'm going to break this unit of spears. He sent another unit of spears over and a unit of depleted swords. The problem he has is the Varangian Guard are going to kill off all of these units one by one because he's going for the cav. He's sending even more units down here to try and deal with the Varangian Guard. This, however, is just sending the mainline fight into my favour, at least, well, sort of, because the pikes are starting to crumple in the middle here. This unit of swords managed to get through to my archers. However, he has sent these unit of swords forward without any form of support, which means it's going to be easy to surround and break them. This pike unit was victorious against the Anglo-Varangian. They did come back, however. This unit of swords is doing pretty good. They got the downhill charge and they were supported by archers, so the Anglo-Varangian weren't really in the best of positions to deal with that, but they are sort of matching them one for one. I really needed them to win that fight there. I'm going to send the pikes up here to try and engage the archers, make sure that they can't send any more forces down here. I will break this Spadaccini because it's being shot point blank by the mortar. This unit of pikes is going to try and get the surround on this unit, but this will allow me to counter surround with my depleted Anglo-Varangian. Back here, I am breaking his spears one by one with the Varangian Guard. The Varangian Guard is starting to take a few losses, mainly because they're finally being targeted by the swords and the foot condottieri that came back from routing. This is what you should have done from the start, because as he was targeting the cav, the Varangian Guard were going unmolested, so to speak, and this allowed them to get tons of kills, and the foot condottieri break because of course they're exhausted and depleted. His cavalry is also losing decisively because of the surround. He's losing this engagement, which is important because he's kind of winning the top engagement. The majority of my troops over here are archers, and he's mopping up my melee troops. This Anglo-Varangian shatters. This should allow him to finish off the last Anglo-Varangian unit I have over here. Getting a nice close-up view here of these archers. This is the problem, really. I've been able to leverage my archers in a way that he's not really been able to deal with. And he should really have whittled my pikes down a little bit more while he had the chance with his catapult, instead of going for my archers, because he didn't really get a lot of kills on my archers. Whereas my pikes, they were breaking even though they didn't take too many casualties. This pike battle will go on forever. They will just... This is bad for me. My infantry is breaking up here. So I decided to peel off some of my archers and really bring this fight into my control. So I'm going to fire my arrows into the back of his Spadaccini, which, you know, they will lose to the Varangian Guard 1v1, but there are two of them, and my Varangian Guard are starting to take some pretty heavy casualties because of how long they've been in the fight. I am also going to get friendly fire on them at this point, but they were going to lose anyway at this point just because of the sheer amount they had to take on. Lovely shields on the Spadaccini though. There's my officer with his cape and his sabre. Nice. But yeah, his cav is starting to break now. And this is what I needed to see. His early Doge of Venice. The condottieri are going to be the hardest unit to kill. The combat is even there, but of course I have a high period general, or late period general, attacking him, in addition to a unit of cataphracts. So this fight is really going in my favour, but if we shift our attention back over to here, we'll notice more of my pikes are breaking, which means more and more this top fight is looking to be in his favour. One of my units of pikes is routing. Hopefully they will come back. Actually no, they are shattered, aren't they? Shattered indeed. This unit has broken. They got surrounded while they were engaged with pikes. So yeah, this top fight has gone in favour of my opponent, but the all-important cav battle is still going in my favour. The Varangian Guard's still clinging on to life. They're no longer losing decisively either, but they have taken an extreme amount of casualties. They're only steady, no longer eager, and there goes the last of his cav. Excuse me. The early Doge of Venice doesn't really stand a chance against the elite cav that I have. Got the cataphracts. Look at that armour. That's awesome. With the lances. So yeah, Just got to break the last of his cav. Hopefully kill off his general as well while he retreats. The Spadaccini is also breaking. The Varangian Guard is not looking too healthy though. Indeed, it is actually a case of I'm actually killing most of the Varangian Guard myself. But they were going to lose anyway, as I said, so I really needed to kill the Spadaccini with my arrows. I did also bring the Varangian Guard into this fight, or did I? Nope, looks like they're going over here. Regardless, as you can see over here, he has mopped up the last of my resistance. I have a unit of pikes and my mortar crew, because it ran out of ammo, forming a wall in front of these archers. These archers will fire into this blob. This is too blobbed up. He should be spreading his pikes out and moving slowly in, because he could easily overwhelm my forces up here. And he needs to defeat these 3 units quickly. Otherwise, he'll find himself in a very sticky situation. He needs to make sure that his pikes are ready for my cav. But more and more, it's looking like I'm going to be victorious here. His cav has come back from routing a few times, but it's really all over for them. They have lost this engagement and they shatter. There's still 1 unit of Cavalier. But this unit of Cavalier is not going to be a match for a massive charge from the Cataphracts. I'm going to send my general and a unit of Cataphracts up to this fight over here. And this unit is going to break any moment. Doesn't have enough men to survive. And there it goes. And now it really just leaves his forces up here, which are already under archer fire. And his main forces are starting to shatter. The loss of his general. He still has a lot of mercenary Genoese, really. But the breaking here is real. All of his units are breaking, and there we go. So that is a victory for the Byzantine Empire. Now, let's have a look at what we can do here. So if we have a look at the stats on all of these units, and you'll see where the battle was won and lost. The mortar did get a lot of kills, but that was only when they came in close. At range, the mortar didn't really get a lot of kills, and early on, his catapult was winning him the skirmish engagement. So that was an area in which I could have improved. If I could have, I would have swapped this mortar out for a catapult, and then I would have had enough money for another unit. Also, I think I went a little too heavy on pikes. I think they didn't really do an awful lot. These 2 units got a decent amount of kills each for pike units, but they were the victims of being skirmished down far too easily. I perhaps would have got a catapult, and then I would have gotten rid of one of these pike units and gotten another Anglo-Varangoi. That would have allowed me to deal with the flanking that I suffered a little bit more easily in the battle. My archers did very well. They did all that I expected of them. Decent kills across the board from them. I think they actually performed better than his skirmishers, really, and overall they did. This archer unit got 0 kills. That's not really good enough. This unit of mercenary Genoese got a lot of kills, mostly on my pikes, I believe, and that's to be expected. They're a very good skirmish unit. But really, I think that where my units did their job very well was, of course, the cav. They won me the cav engagement, but the Varangian Guard as well. 204 kills. That's the most in my army. And they're an infantry unit. Usually you'd expect the cav or the archers to get the most kills, but the Varangians did in this case. What my opponent could have done better, I think his army was a little bit all over the place in terms of how he picked. Like, he's got all sorts of different units. Yeah, he should have gone for a little bit more of a structured approach. And he should have had a clear plan in mind. Like, I think he could have stocked up more on mercenary Genoese. And maybe had a little bit less in terms of, like, the elite spears. And he could have skirmished me to death, really. And that would have been something that I would have struggled to deal with, especially with the mortar early on, because it seemed like it wasn't doing a lot of damage. I would have needed to push up, and that probably would have been where I lose the battle. Also, I think his misuse of his foot condottieri early on, they still got 63 kills, even though they were massacred by my archers. This unit of Spadaccini did pretty well. His swords did okay across the board, but these units' kill counts are not high enough. His spears did woefully. Yeah, I think that would be it. If I had to suggest improvements for me, catapult instead of mortar, maybe a bit more in terms of infantry because the pikes were the victim of the skirmish. And my enemy, he should have really structured his army a little bit better. He should have gone for a more skirmished approach. That's what Venice are really good at. And he should have gone for more foot condottieri, I think. It would have allowed him to go toe-to-toe with stuff like my Varangian Guard and Anglo-Varangoi a little bit more easily. So I hope you enjoyed that battle, and I do have some more, and I hope to do a few more of these in the future, and I hope I'll see you there.